Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the May 2nd committee meeting of the Milton Area School Board. Could we have roll call, please?
Mr. Frederick? Here. Mr. Hosterman? Here. Mr. Hunt? Here. Ms. Kessler?
Here.
Mr. Moser? Here. Dr. Strasser?
Here.
Mr. Harris? Here. Dr. Weaver?
Here.
Mrs. Rance?
Here.
Thank you.
Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to begin this evening with a few presentations. The first is the Pinpoint Wellness Center presentation. Dr. Bickhart.
Thank you, Mrs. Rance. Tonight, we're going to dive a little bit into Pinpoint Wellness Center, officially named now. We have had multiple conversations on the Wellness Center and where things stand. So we're going to take a little bit of time tonight and really dive deep into what is the future of this? How do we get it open to the community? Some of this is going to be a historical look. Some of this then will be what does the future look like? And we'll answer questions. And please stop me as I proceed if you've got any additional questions or thoughts as we're going through. So, Mr. Gemlin, go ahead. So this first slide, and again, the board, you have this in front of you in a packet. This slide, I think it's important because there was a lot of conversation on this, prior to my becoming superintendent. Many of the administrators in this room were involved in those conversations. This was the reality. When the process began, this was part of the goal. These statements, just a reminder, I think for most of the board members here, you have seen these previously. They just referenced what the future of the district was to look like. So you have this slide. I'm not going to read every line. And then you continue, Mr. Gemberling, the second slide. The goal was strengthening Panther Pride, starting a capital campaign that was the goal of raising $1 million to move forward as a district with many things as part of this goal. So I want to give credit to where this started and what the ultimate goal was. And I think, realistically, we go to the next slide, it takes us right to what the plan was. It was to raise $1 million. And I think we're very proud to say that happened. I think as of within the past month, we have seen that final, maybe 6 weeks, that final, bit of money come in to reach that $1 million goal. But if you read that carefully, it talks about what the goal was and the benefits of the campaign to accomplish state-of-the-art CTE programs, updated performing arts center, improved elementary facilities and playgrounds. We just sitting here in Bacher with that on the horizon, a modern athletic complex, and a brand new nutrition, wellness, and fitness center for our students and our community to reach their highest potential through these opportunities, healthier lifestyles, and community pride. So it is very important to acknowledge that these were the things stated to the community, to the board, to move this forward. Looking at the next piece of this, let's get into during the spring of 22. A year ago, there was a whole conversation on hiring a fitness and wellness center instructor. So if you take a look, they were the key aspects of why we were doing this, right? It was strength and conditioning, education, programs. We wanted somebody to fit that bill. Coverage for all necessary timeframes. I think that's very important. I kept that there because that was the wording used last year, including those community hours, the maintenance, the upkeep, the inspections of the equipment, with their values, supervise our students when they're in there, report issues directly to our administrators, just like a teacher would in the classroom, ability to remove students who are not following those rules or being unsafe. We want to ensure that our machines are clean, racked, items are returned to their original locations, provide educated Coverage for students, coaches, staff, and community members, ensure proper techniques are being followed, all of those key pieces. And, the last piece, work with athletes, teams, when coaches are available or not available, and including the off season. So that was the facts, right? That was what was presented. That was the reality. What I want to share with you, I think, as we have discussed this as a team, is what then happened. What was the reality when summer hits? We hired, in June of 22, this board approved the hiring of Trent Donlin as that person for inside of the community or inside of the Pinpoint Wellness Center. So that timetable that's sitting in front of you isn't, this all amazing thing, but what it is our reality as a school district, as administrators, of what was happening, during this time. And I think it's important. I take full responsibility for the fact being new superintendent. Trying to open this on day one of that last school year wasn't a possibility. I think Dr. Keegan being here and her experience, absolutely, being prepared for that. So I take full responsibility for walking in and this not being my priority. And that is on me for not being able to get that moving when August and September hit. However, I believe there is a silver lining to this from our student side. So Trent starts in August because he's on the teacher contract. Students return to school. We begin to discuss in September of 22. I can remember, Mr. Harris, Mr. Rance, Mr. Bergen, and I kind of looking at each other going, okay, we're not open to the community right now. My reality of not being ready to embark on that as we were just opening the center. But we also knew that the original goal of Trent working 12:30 to 8 was not maximizing our resources at that time. There were many evenings by 5:30, people were gone. Trent did not have students he was working with. It wasn't his fault. We gave him a schedule. That was the anticipated schedule. So we began really quickly in September saying, wait a second, we need to discuss this. We need to adjust this. Kids were starting to gravitate towards him. We were starting to see that grow. Again, the key points there, we weren't utilizing it after 5 p.m. Not because we can't utilize it after 5 p.m. with the community moving forward. We just weren't in that boat of being ready to do that. Again, there's his active timeframes, the 12:30 to 8. October 22, we basically look at this and say, we need to change this because with not being ready, we need to maximize this man's time, and why not maximize it with our students? So we do that. We move him to 9:30 to 5:05. We see an immediate positive impact because he's connecting into our gym classes. He's working with dozens of kids throughout the day, athletes, non-athletes. It's just that his skill set inside of that wellness center was huge from a teaching perspective. I added in there that we then, discussed him being, because he was beginning to have relationships, with our students in a positive way when it came to athletics. He wanted to get involved in coaching track and field. So with adding him to that aspect, and again, not being open to the community, we, discussed that. We approved him as a coach, but ultimately we said, you're not coaching until after 5:15 from practices. That does not include any kind of meets, because of course we can't control meets have to begin, I think, at 4 p.m., based off of the schedules. But his practice schedule for the majority of his days began after 5:15. So what we see here is we got the person we want. We felt confident in this person. We knew we needed to maximize them at this time. So we've done that, right? We've used him. We did a study, I think, looking back at the amount of students, that are in our PE classes over the past year. There's probably at least 100 to 150 kids he has impacted in his first year, on a daily basis between the 2 semesters. Then you add in students that were coming to him in the weight room as part of the sports teams or not. So this is the unexpected, right? This is the reality of it being happening, and here we are. There's the timeline. We move. This is our world right now. So continuing on, what I think we really need to look at is, okay, what is the future? A couple things I think we need to be clear on is that what will our hours of operation actually be, no matter what, no matter how we handle opening this gym. So our proposal is during the school year, Pinpoint Wellness Center will follow our district calendar, will not be open on celebrated holidays, professional development days, anytime we close early dismissals due to any type of closure. And that the days and the hours of operation, as well as the track, and I will discuss that later, will clearly be marked on our website under the community tab. So if we have to make changes, we're documenting that. So this slide really just kind of is stating this is what we believe is our best option for moving us forward, and keeping the public in the know when it comes to the hours of operation. Any questions at this point? Do you want me to continue on? What I'm going to move into now is the reality of our options. You okay to continue from that point at this? Okay. So looking at option A, and again, the board, I know it's in front of you. For the public, I'm sorry, it's a little small. So what we're proposing in option A is really the original proposal. We continue to use Trent. Thank you. We continue to use Trent as the sole person running our wellness center. He would begin that Monday to Friday, 6:30 to 8 p.m. during the school year. And we would follow the calendar as we just identified. So ultimately, he would work with our kids. He would go to that 12:30 to, probably closer to 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock time, or 1 o'clock to 8:30 timeframe, to open to the public. Summer months, the thing we have to look at there is it's more than likely that our opening would be 1 to 4 in the afternoon for the community. Why is that? We'd be bringing Trent in to work with our student athletes in the morning. As part of his, not only his actual contract, but he has an additional 20 days. I know we've discussed that prior. So he would use those 20 days for our students, divided into basically half-days, plans. So that's, all included. On days he is absent because he is the sole individual, we would be closed to the public if he is, out sick. And I think it's important to note, in this scenario, his ability to work that 1 to 4 is based off the contracted hours, that supplemental employment, because we're, solely using him in this example. So, and I tried to, one of the things I will point out as you're looking at this, I spent some time the past week and a half really trying to crunch numbers that are as accurate as I could think. And I've gone back and forth. Is it a 10-week summer, 12-week summer? I think it's actually a 10-week and 4-day summer. If we look at from May 29th, right after Memorial Day, or even May 24th, when school ends, or May 25th when school ends. So what this does is, no matter what, even in this scenario, is that 5,115. Actually, Dwayne, go to the next slide, because here's the map of it. Here's what it comes down to financially for the board. Part of his salary that covers the use of that during the school year. And again, we'd be looking at this for next school year. I realize that now. But part of his salary, $15,480, because it would be during his contracted hours if we use that evening time. However, no matter how we do it, unless we truly choose not to use his summer hours for our students, we would have to pay him. There would be at least a $5,000 charge on this to us to figure out to keep it open in the summer for our public. So that is kind of the option A. The only thing I think that is different in that option is when we talk about him fulfilling all hours. Yes, it's there, but I just can't find a way that we are able to meet our students' needs and our community needs in the summer without that last piece of extra employment. So that's option A. Option B is in the middle. So in this case, we're going to have him focus on students as well as community during school days. His schedule will only focus on our students during the summer hours, meaning those 20 extra days will be divided out to meet with our students in those morning hours to focus on our teams. In this model, we are going to hire multiple individuals to supervise the PWC in order to ensure consistent coverage. When I say multiple individuals, I do not mean we need multiple people in there at one time. It's just so we have extra resources if somebody is absent or sick. This would limit the amount of closures, of course, and then summer hours, we probably could adjust them then to be more conducive to the community from 4 to 7 p.m. when people are out of work. because of not, changing that schedule. So, not having to be balanced off of the 8 to 12 or 12:30 schedule that Trent would be working in the summer. So from a financial standpoint, continuing on there, Mr. Gambling. There's the numbers. Again, same number, 15,480, because he's working with our community during his school hours based off his contract. In this case, you're paying somebody $15 an hour, and we're looking at those, 11 weeks. You're talking about $2,475 for a part-time employee. Final piece, option C. This is, we're only focusing, Trent on our students. His whole schedule stays within that basically 9:30 to 5 o'clock standpoint to maximize during the day and to maximize our students after school. We would hire individuals, same kind of language right there that would allow us to cover community hours. So from a financial standpoint, next slide, please. You're talking about, that is the operating cost for the hiring of a part-time employee, $5,400. It's 2 hours a day per evening. $15 an hour times 180 days. And then your part-time employment over the summer, which was similar to what we just were showing you there. So yes, there's a cost ensued here, of course. All of them have cost and actual cost. When you look at, the percentage of salary, we want Trent to be focused on the community, which again is an option the board can consider. Continuing on. I mentioned earlier the track. There's what we believe coming into this summer. The track will be opened 7 to 7. Custodian will open the facility in the morning. We'll try and lock it in the evening. We'll come up with a schedule to keep it open to our community. We can get into some of the specifics of that as we move forward here. It's a little bit more difficult when in season to have that open, but it is a conversation we can have if there's opportunity. Go back to what we talked about at the beginning. We have a calendar out there so people know this is what you go to look at to know, is the track even open at that time? Will you be even able to get in? Continuing on. This is probably, being honest with you, why when we went to look at opening this immediately, it was like, wait a second, hold on. There's layers to this. What's our application process? What's our liability? Are we charging a fee? What does this look like? Do we need background checks? I stated to you before, we're going to have to look at possibly, a policy acknowledging that we can allow people to come in the rear of the building when they're as visitors with this, and we can do all of that as we proceed here. The annual access fee that I have placed there, just to put that in context, what we have talked about is we went to other school districts. They've got some cost structures in place. They've said that is a huge piece when it comes to just navigating this, to making sure there is some buy-in. We are talking about giving fob access during those specific hours. This would allow people to be able to enter with the fob. We can limit what that looks like. In order to do that, we're looking at a one-time fee at this point of $50 per person. If it would be a couple, it would be $75. And then any child that is 13 or above that would be coming with their parents would be, an additional $10. That's a question this board can really look at, is what do those specifics look like? We just tried to balance, what we were told about what other people are charging. If we're not using a fob, what the replacement fee for a fob would be, with all the, man hours, all those kind of things that go into all that. So, and at this point, I feel terrible because we keep pushing this back. And really why we're here tonight is we want to finalize the plan we're going to put in to place so we can be open I would like to be open for the summer for our community. When that track opens, that we can say, hey, this is what's happening with the wellness center. So that's just an example cost structure. And the final piece I want to share with you, I think it's the final slide. Go ahead, Dwayne. Is, early on, our trainer through Geisinger, Matt Gelbaugh, a couple of times just made comment to me about the impact of having Trent's expertise in the wellness center. So I thought these were some interesting comments he brought to us. He said that he is an unbelievable asset to the Milton athletic program with the strength and conditioning coach, overall asset just to Milton student body. I think why he's saying that is he's seeing, being that his office is right there, kids who aren't necessarily athletes are connecting into this, an outlet for students, hopefully focused on a healthy lifestyle. And I think that second paragraph, I won't read every word, but what he's getting at there is they are really working towards a plan of, how do they treat students? How can they work together? What is that combination between trainer and athletic trainer and then strength and conditioning coach to really make sure kids are prepared for returning to play. So it's not just that he's in that wellness center, he's helping kids when they're lifting and that. He's also looking at, okay, what is this kid's background? What injuries that they have? What is going on? How do I really focus in on making them a better and more prepared athlete? I'll finish the presentation there. I mean, I'm well aware that we tried to be honest with, we know what was said. I know what was said. I think our team between Mr. Harris, Mr. Rance, Mr. Bergen, and I really sat and talked about this. I don't know if any of you gentlemen want to comment. I know part of it was we just didn't realize what we had with Trent with the students until we saw it. And that's we feel that's most important to us, but we also realize we need to be realistic and look at what the board thinks is best for the community. So any thoughts from you gentlemen at this point? Okay, so questions. Let's dive in. My goal is that you feel comfortable that we can come to a conclusion next week on how we want to handle this.
I have two questions, if I may.
Certainly.
So we talk about wanting to have it open for the student athletes from 1 to 4 during the summer.
So that would be for the community. During the 1 to 4 would be community. 8 to 12:30 would be our student athletes.
Okay. So prior to Trent and prior to the wellness center, what was available to the students then? What did we do previously?
It'd be whatever coach would come in and open it.
Are the coaches available for this mix at all?
I mean, it would be the same thing as we've done in the past.
What I can tell you Trent has said to us is he is looking at 3 distinct programs for specific teams and sports and working with them. I think one is like 8 to 9, 9:30, another 9:30 to 11, and 11 to 12:30. Now we may adjust those times to meet a half-day schedule. So he's already begun looking at and working with those coaches. I think the other thing we've seen in the past few months is he's really beginning to create relationships with our coaches. And then that's establishing the next step with these programs.
And that might answer my second question. Am I correct in saying this is only a benefit for our team affiliated student athletes, not for all students during that time frame?
During the summertime?
Yeah.
The other students would be, any student during that time would be allowed in. Programmatically, it might just have certain things going on during those times.
He's
Certain
designating
teams.
time, trying to designate time specifically for different teams and workouts and things, but those hours will still be open to any
Students.
student that wants to use it at that time.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
So I have a question. Before we go and hire another position for the wellness center, is there an option to use his 20 summer days and only have it open to the community twice a week just to see how much it's being used and not have to add in another position? And with that being said, could he create the programs that the athletes need and their coaches follow through then with the programs that are being trained on, where he doesn't have to physically be there with them?
So I'll start with from the community side. From the survey we put out, it seems like those that want to use it from the community they want consistency. This wasn't a open it, because that was our goal, being honest. I think from the 4 of us, we saw this as a twice a week for the community kind of thing. And very quickly we learned that was not really what community members were thinking when they saw it. And I get it, because when you do a workout program, it's usually multiple days a week, if not 5 days a week, and you're doing different exercises. So that's the reason we have not chosen to present that way, is because we're trying to be as open to the community as we possibly can. On Monday to Friday, kind of, the other thing that I didn't put in there, and I probably should have, is having someone as a part-time worker may allow some Saturday hours as well. There's some flexibility there. So from that standpoint, that's why we didn't go down that path. I think from the shore, can he create programs and hand them the coaches and do all of that? Yeah, but I think, I don't want to speak for those gentlemen, but I think our goal was the consistent approach of someone being there. So when kids come in, they're getting the program. He's establishing that. He's our lead in strength and conditioning for all our teams. But it's not, yes, I think all things are possible with this. We can be as creative as we want to be.
So my question is, when it comes to track and field, that there's a potential when meets happen that there may be a conflict because they have to be scheduled earlier. Hiring another position, does that allow us
Yes.
to capitalize on filling that gap so
Yes.
we don't have to worry about not having it available?
Absolutely. Those handful of days. Hence why when I talked about like the 11 weeks, I was kind of calculating there could be a handful, I think it's closer to 10, 11 weeks, but could be a handful of days that, and again, absences, by having that, if he's absent and we know he's going to be out, we can go to one of those people and say, hey, can you open the weight room tonight? Can you do this for us?
Is there a projection that was put out, or can we get one for what we look to potentially gain, that if there's an offset for the expenses with the new salary versus what we might be able to make?
Sure.
for
So what
each?
I had that and then I kind of pulled back because
I thought there was.
there was multiple options. So if you go back one slide, Dwayne, please. So what I would tell you is give or take, I don't know what the magic number is for us that we think we need from the community to keep us a viable, open community facility. Is it 100 people that have memberships? Is it 150? Give or take, 50 to 75 individuals, 50 to 75 couples, you're right there. You're offsetting the $7,600 cost. I've also looked at, I'll give you another one that I've looked at when it comes to access. Could you look at a $25 fob fee and then $5 a month? Get you to about $85 per year per person. At that rate, $100 or 100 people absolutely covers your cost. What I look at there is it's consistent. People are having to do something every month, to stay consistent with it. We're keeping an eye on whether or not we want to be open during those times. Is it really worth our time and our effort?
So we're looking at the estimated cost would be about $6,000 to hire a new part-time person for this.
I think the option C, if I pulled option C, it's 7,500. I think it's closer to. We're looking there. We go back to option C a second. Dwayne.
78.
Yeah, 78. And again, please, these are ballpark numbers based off of option C. Yeah, these are ballpark numbers based off of $15 an hour. But I think to answer your question, Mr. Harris, it's that 100 to 150 people with a good structured
Well, that's why I was
that would
going off.
cover
the
that exact
numbers.
cost.
I was looking at the numbers that we have for rough guesstimates for what we charge for an individual, a family, or a student,
Yeah.
to see what the rough number is, and it's like 100 people you'd have to get to be able to offset. I'm just making sure that if we were to pursue this, that it's feasible to offset it with what we might be able to make annually to cover the costs of
Yeah.
opening up to the community.
So in option C, Mr. Donlin's schedule, will he be making extra money on his schedule to be there every day for the students?
So he will work his contracted hours, 9:30 to 5 o'clock. That would be his normal schedule. His 20 additional days would be that division over the summer to allow him in the mornings to do the student schedule. So yes, he would
Nothing
take,
extra for him over the summer.
no, he would not, you wouldn't need that $31 an hour because he's not the sole person doing the extra employment based on the contract. Yeah, Mr. Harris is on where I'm at. My mind is we can find a way to offset the complete cost of this with a realistic number that we're like, yeah, we should, if we can't get 75 to 100 people to really offset this, is it really viable to the community?
That's what my next question was. When we, is there a possibility, if we look this route, it can be set up that it's a, contingent upon a year assessment of how it looks if we actually have enough people
I think
participate?
I think we have to do that.
Yeah.
Whether it's December when it ends and we restart and we're like, wait, we have not gotten anybody, or if we say, listen, we want to be sitting here a year from now and we want to know what is our, we'll know a daily take. I mean, the person who's there, they'll fob in, we'll be able to look at that
Yeah, I was
time
gonna
frame. We'll have all the data we need to determine if it's really a valuable means. I think one other clear thing I want to state here is go back to Dr. Strasser's question. This is a Monday through Friday undertaking during the school year. And we're looking at the wellness center being Monday through Friday. We walked it. Jeff and I were there. We looked at, basically the wellness center in and of itself, heating, whatever, can be kept on its own. People come in, they go right there. It's not, we would block everything else off. All the doors locked. We're not opening all the other buildings. It would allow that question that's been asked, I think, for many years of consistent programming for our students, and I would want it for the community. But we would keep it located in the wellness center. Other thing to state out loud is the track. We are not, if somebody just comes in and walks onto the track during those times it's open, so be it.
No restrooms.
That would be a question.
Yeah.
We have cameras.
So since the track was brought up, I do have a question about that. At our September board meeting, I believe, Rodney, you had made the suggestion we had to buy the mats to cover where the cheerleaders were positioned because the track was being damaged. If we open this up for 12 hours a day and let people walk on it, how soon are we looking at having to replace the track?
I think the walking part of it would be okay. It's the repetitive motion in one position that rubs all the granules off the top of the track. So as long as people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, I think it would be okay.
And spreading out over the lanes and not.
Yeah,
using the
right.
same-
Not repetitive in the same lane, round and around and around.
And we're going to portray that to the
So I
community.
think what we would have to do,
No bikes, no scooters.
yeah, I think that would be part of it. I think what I've seen other school districts, you are absolutely right. You talk to other school districts, they're going to tell you, yes, there is wear and tear to your track. I think some of those districts use lanes 7 and 8. They really try and keep the people on the outside because there's so much use of during a track meet, lanes 1, 2,
Yep.
1 through 6. So I've seen that.
And we already have the signs posted for the no bikes, no skateboards, no scooters. They're all posted around the fence now.
No pets.
No pets.
So
So how will we police it?
we won't. So I will share with all of you, it's up to you. The one thing you have in your track that a lot of places do not have is an exterior path around the fence. That is still there. That is concrete, still allows people inside the facility. I know they're not on the track, but they're still in a, basically a circular pattern, a little off kilter, but you're wearing on concrete. Like most schools don't have that, right? They don't have an exterior lane that goes full around the outside of the fence. So that's another option to consider if you're concerned about wear and tear on the track, but you still want to allow people to enjoy the facility. It is an option.
I'm concerned about the $2 million deficit.
I would
that we
be,
have
yeah, I'd be
to add to the
Yeah.
track.
very concerned about opening that. Yeah, actual track.
With that, we can keep the, go ahead, Russ.
If I may too, with that idea, there are a lot of other places that have mile markers around because that will be farther than your 4 laps around the track for 1 mile, which people like to know how far they're going.
Do that.
So we could take those measurements very easily and put markers around on the outside of how many laps you're doing. This is how many miles or markers that you're walking or running.
Other thoughts,
I have a
questions?
I have a question about administration of the applications. Who's going to be responsible for keeping track of, the year-long subscriptions from everybody and handing out fobs and all of that administrative work?
So it'll initially start through the district office. We'll work through there initially. That is why I presented the option of a one-time fee instead of a monthly fee initially, because of just creates more maintenance. But I think we need through my office into Greg and Jeff, they're smiling over there because the fobs go through them. They will be involved in that process as well. Yeah. Yeah, and that's when we talk about the fob, that all that there's not only is it a device, there's man hours that go with that. That's why the fee is there, but it gives us complete knowledge, who's in and out. They only have access at certain times, which we're very close. Our system is fully upgraded, close to upgrades. We're getting there.
When the fob opens the door, you have 5 people with you. I mean, a
Now-
fob doesn't keep it limited to one person.
The goal there would be other doors locked and making sure, you have somebody working there that can report that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot. So these questions are probably a lot of the what ifs and why when in September, I was like, oh boy, there's so many layers to opening this. Yeah, not that we don't want to. Just want to do it right.
Just a few thoughts here. I'm okay with option C. I think Trent needs to be with the athletes and a little bit of time with the people, with the community, just because we promised the community that. We should run this thing for a year, 18 months, and if we can't get 75 memberships, shut it down. We gave the community a chance. If they choose not to use it, we don't need the part-time employee. We don't need to have it open. As far as the track, I like the idea of just leaving it on the outside asphalt. It's designed very well for that. Most people that want to walk, they want to walk in a secure environment. That's why they're coming to the school. I don't think the actual track is going to add any more value to that other than just the novelty of walking on the rubber surface. And I mean, maybe if you have some hardcore committed runners that you can see how this transpires over time, that may be an option to, buy a track pass as well. If this person operating the room, could keep an eye on that. But for the short term, the people that want to meet at the school and go for a walk, rather than walking through the streets of Milton, I think the asphalt outside lanes is perfectly fine. But we definitely have to do something to open this up, at least for a 12, 18-month trial period. We get 150 people that buy memberships, it runs itself. If we get 35 that buy membership, well, we're sorry, find 40 friends to sign up, or we're going to close it.
I'm a huge ad. I think, I agree. Option D is a good option. And I think what we do is if we go this route in a year, we reassess how all the equipment's been handled, how the approach to this, the stadium and stuff. And then I think we can reevaluate it from there and look to see how everything's been treated and maybe reevaluate if we let them go on to using other portions of the field or whatnot.
If we go one of the options of hiring somebody, are we gonna find somebody for $15 an hour? Because there's a lot of places out there hiring for 20 and people don't even want to do that job. They'd rather sit at home and work off a computer, make, $25. Are they gonna want to come in and get a job here?
I think it'd be attractable to retired
That's
folks.
another thing. Is there a requirement for any lifting for them to be?
So, okay, so one of the things I did in this whole discussion, as we were looking at this, I met with Trent a little bit and said, okay, if we were to hire somebody, what would be some of that? His comment would be somebody that would have to be able to lift at least 50 pounds. That's probably the only real, he did a quick little job analysis of some of the things he would want to review with somebody. Trent would be heavily involved if we hired somebody and showing them, here's how you clean, here's how you do that. Like, he's going to want to take very good care of it and make sure they're along with all of us, I don't think we'll have a problem. I mean, $15 an hour, that you're coming to just make sure people. I hope not, but we can't guarantee anything when it comes to employment.
So if I hear you right, we're allowing Trent to oversee this?
it would be like anything else administratively overseen, but Trent will be heavily involved just because of his understanding of how the equipment is used and making sure he reviews with the person. I would want that, not only Rod or Mike or Andy doing that, but Trent's the one in there and knows the equipment and making sure he connects with them.
The only other thing I wrote down was, which Mrs. Grant's brought up, I guess, kinda, was how are we going to know if, this guy has a fob or whatever, and they give it to somebody else and they come in, that person won't be cleared. They won't have any background checks. They're not going to have anything, and nobody's going to know what this person looks like. Maybe they do. I don't know, but that's also something we have to consider too.
Yep. I mean, we when looked at it, like ultimately we would make sure all other areas to entrance to the building is locked. But certainly, I think if, like anything, if there's people that off cameras, we'll see all that. We're hearing that. We can go back and check that. But yes, that is definitely a what if.
So this is just a general question about the wellness center. Our athletes that actually train there, do they train there as a group? Is it the whole sport? Isn't it at the same time? And are they all training there together, or are some going to other outside facilities?
It's a mixture of everything. So right now, football is pretty much, I would say, your group or your team that lifts together. What Dr. Bickhart was talking about with this summer, with the program set up, Trent is going to try and move forward to bringing teams together in, so they're lifting together for their sport-specific lifts. That's one thing he wants to try and implement over the summer.
So is that something we can put in place, that they have to lift as a team at the wellness center so that they're lifting under the craftsmanship of Trent?
That's a great question. I don't know if we can make it and force it to be mandatory to do that. I would love for that to happen. We would like to have all of our kids lifting with their team, with their program in our
Is
facility.
that something we can look into?
Sure. I don't know if we're allowed to say you have to come to a
I mean,
game.
if it's a
We used to have a
sporting,
part-time strength and conditioning person who went and worked with teams as a team. So what's the difference?
you're part of a team, you're part of a team.
Can we mandate a kid to come in during the summer though in the
So
morning?
you
and say
run
you
into
have to
issues
be
with
here?
hours and.
That's
school.
the only thing I would think would be the issue.
Well, they have to come for practice when it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not official practice, PIAA.
That's true. It's not
it's-
PIAA sanctioned. Good
Yeah,
point.
It's not sanctioned. And if
But
they go
in our
somewhere
world,
else,
yes, we
can't
like this
stop them
idea.
from doing- Yeah, we can't stop them from going somewhere
Yeah.
else either. I mean, it would be ideal if they all came. I mean,
You know,
that's a coach's position to encourage that and to mentor those kids to
So
come
maybe that can be
together.
relayed to coaches.
yeah, I think
We want all the team here.
the question
Why
you're,
Trent's here.
the question you're asking exactly, I think where we talked is what we have, who we have in Trent right now is allowing us to do this. And I think we kept coming back to that. Like, I don't think we realized we were going to hire the person that was that connected to kids. So I think if he continues to do what he's doing and who he is, connects coaches, which connect to the kids, we're going to see a lot of that. Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just, I was going to echo kind of what you were saying there about Coach Donlin and working with our kids. It is something we would love to have all of our kids lifting with him on a regular basis. However, it does become difficult to require that outside of the structure of a normal sports season. So let's take soccer, for example. Once they're out of the soccer season, it's tough for them to be required. You can't require kids to attend off-season programs or practices. So that becomes difficult for kids to do that. I know, Mr. Hosterman, you mentioned about, we did have a strength conditioning coach that would work with teams. He would go to them. That would typically occur during a season. So they would go during their scheduled practice time where they would carve out 20 minutes to work with our strength conditioning coach. Those types of things would happen. We do communicate with our coaches. I know Mr. Harris talks with all of our coaches saying, please make sure that you are talking with your athletes to go and work out at whatever specific time they would have with the coach. So those conversations already do happen. It's a struggle to get kids to want to be in that room That's why we see such a significant value in Coach Donlin, because he does have that personality that kids enjoy being around, that enjoy being there. And that's a huge asset to get kids to want to come in and lift, and not just our athletes either. We see quite a few kids that are hanging out in there after school that have nothing to do with sports. They just want to lift. They enjoy Coach Donlin. He's a good guy. He connects with them well. So those conversations are happening, and a lot of it does have to do with Trent. He's a good guy, and he sees the value in forming relationships with kids.
So if I understand you correctly, then during this season, we can require the kids to lift here with their program and not be doing it outside of the facility?
So if a coach wants to carve out time within their practice time to say, hey, listen, we're going to dedicate, half hour, 40 minutes, 2 days a week, 3 days a week to go lift, that's something that they could do within their practice time. Yeah.
So since we're paying for this position, is that something then we should be looking at coaches doing? I mean, we have this person here in this
Sure.
brand new facility. Should they not be pushed to use it?
You're going to be taking away time to practice the actual sport at that point. Then you could be looking at an hour and a
Just
half
like
a week.
the slide about the strength and the injuries.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, you have to train the strength as well as the sport.
Correct. Yep.
I think the overall answer to your question is, do we want Trent involved with our teams and our coaches to create programs like that? Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know how much of the practice time it would be, depending on the sport. And all sports are different. I'm trying to think like my own running. So my intention will be next week, we'll need to look at a job description. A modified, very simple job description for that, as well as an option to move forward. We'll bring that to the board next week. And we can, if we need to, further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, our next presentation this evening.
So
From Norm Jones Media.
yeah, so a lot of conversation the past few weeks about public relations, community relations. 6 years ago, correct, Mr. Jones? Yes. You were brought in, Dr. Keegan, consulted with Norm to bring some social media expertise. Norm's background, his knowledge, very different from our educational side. So I think it was very appropriate at this point, after some of the questions, we want to make sure we're sharing back to you. We consult, we work with Norm, but let him explain a little bit about what he is bringing to our district.
Thank you. Good evening, directors, Dr. Bigelow, administrators, community members, reporters, Mr. Gembling. I think this is the first time in 6 years that I've had an opportunity to really address the board and talk about what it is that I do. Dr. Bighart pointed out to me, maybe today or yesterday, I bet you've learned a little bit about what you do here. And I thought, yeah, this is much more than just what you might, if you were to Google public relations, see what you do. I find that I wear many hats here, and I'm happy to. Before I get into talking about the collaboration that we have, I do want to mention that I am a Milton, Turbot Township resident, Milton Borough property owner, a dad of 3 children, 2 middle schoolers and an elementary schooler at White Deer Elementary, and a Danville Ironman natively, but now a proud Panther at heart. So without further ado, the title of my slide is a collaboration which celebrates successes, engages our community, navigates times of crisis, promotes events, practices advocacy of Panther pride, and develops and implements philanthropic efforts on behalf of the Panther legacy. So those are some of the hats that I wear. Mr. Gemberling, if you would navigate through, I've got a couple of slides that talk a little bit about what I do here. These are some of them. If you have questions throughout, please feel free to raise your hand and ask. Media relations. So if we haven't talked and you don't know who I am, for 12 years before I landed here at Milton, I was a news anchor and journalist at WNEP TV, a television station as well in Ohio. I have about 12 and a half years of journalism experience and in management there as well. I use all of those years of experience and then the relationships that I built there and continued to build through philanthropy and my nonprofit endeavors to take those relationships and then afford positive public relations for our school district. So this is very proactive and beneficial in managing negative press that comes along, correcting misinformation, and really helping to shape a positive public perception of our school district. And that comes through a variety of mediums. Some of these pictures that you see are fresh. This is an image from the Daily Item of, it looks like Jackson Lane, one of the is that Jackson? Yeah, he plays on my son's Little League team. Picking up some trash right there next to White Deer. There's Morgan Reiner. I was able to bring WNEP in when we had a world-class javelin trainer in here working with our athletes, and so WNEP interviewed. You see a picture of the athletic stadium underway, and then when we successfully gained grant dollars to hire new SROs, WNEP was celebrating that. So just a few images to put along with some of the words. Are there any questions about media relations? And okay, I'll keep moving along here. Dwayne, if you would. Some of the other things are community engagement and advocacy on behalf of the school district. So just last week, I spent about an hour and a half sitting down with the borough manager in Milton talking about a strategic plan for the borough of Milton and wanting school district representation there. I am active with the downtown group Time, the Improved Milton Experience, Rotary clubs, close relationships with our police department, various youth groups, whether it's in a volunteer or in a coaching capacity, and then also with our elected officials. Just had a great conversation yesterday with our new state senator, Linda Culver, about some grant dollars that we received and some other opportunities that are coming along the way. So that's part of that community engagement and advocacy. In the curriculum world in the last 6 years, I've been lucky that our staff and our faculty and our administration have asked me to use expertise, whether that's to sit down with the young journalists that we have and talk about the creation of a story, and how to bring it to life, talk about attribution, how do we get attention and positive press for what our students are doing, all the way to new classroom curriculum that we're working on now that focuses on everything from social media to video production, marketing, graphic design, you name it. So very thankful to have been, a part of that over the years. Crisis communications is, I think this is one that I truly feel appreciated on behalf of the administrators who are here. So I had one of our administrators say to me, Norm, when we have a student who says, they're going to bring a weapon to school, or they did bring a weapon to school, and we are seeing information come in second by second, the educational professionals in this room are thinking about kids, they're thinking about staff, they're thinking about safety. And sometimes the last thing they're thinking about is, what is the community thinking? What are the words to use? What's the proper vernacular? What information are we going to give with as much transparency as possible without giving away too much information? So to hear my peers at the school district say, you focus on what the community needs to hear. We'll focus on school safety. We'll focus on our staff. It really, truly is a partnership. And, no school district is immune to the need for crisis communications. In fact, I have, in 6 years, had no less than a dozen calls from other superintendents, IUs, principals, board of directors from other communities saying, hey, I really like what you did, whether it was a kudo or could you help me with this? 3 months ago, I was fishing and I got a call from a superintendent in another school district saying, hey, I saw what you did with Milton. I really needed that. I'm in a pickle. Could you help me out? So I know that what we do gets recognized, and that's I think, a feather in our cap here. Internally, there have been many times where whether it's Dr. Bickhart, Dr. Keegan in the past, where we collaborated together to say, hey, how do we engage our staff? What's the best way to reach out? Is it a survey? Is it a letter? How do we highlight what we're doing here? And could you help me build a communication piece around that? We want to create a positive work environment, boost morale. Those are projects that I've been really proud to be a part of. Event promotion, I think one of the ones that I'm just the most proud about is the Milton Middle School Veterans Program that has grown year after year. This is Mr. Scoggins' baby, if you will. Greg, what do we have? Almost 200 plus people this year. I think pre-COVID, when I was around, we had maybe 70 to 80. Yeah, just about. So to see that program, and this year, I mean, I get goosebumps right now thinking about it. It was an amazing display of patriotism, an amazing display of how much our children at a middle school age understand the importance of patriotism and what our veterans have done for us. So kudos to you, Mr. Scoggins, and kudos to our kids. And then also CTE is another one. We love CTE at Milton. I love CTE. I love when other school districts, Millville just reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, really, that video that you made, it's got Mr. Bittner in it. Could you make something like that for us? Could you teach us, how to do that? I love when other school districts reach out to us and say, what I saw you do was top shelf. Could you help with that? So these are some of the events that we've promoted with either video content or with just contacts, reaching out to press outlets that are open to giving us some positive PR. Brand management. How many of you in this room have seen a different shaped M in your time here at Milton? Don't be bashful. That's not raising his hand right now because he knows. This man is a champion of and understands brand and how important it is. But that's the one thing that we've been trying to do over the years is really try to use at least one M, try to use one color, one orange color, try to use one panther. I think if we did a contest and walked around our school campuses, we might find 18 different looking panthers. And we're really, Mr. Berge's working on that with the program right now with Jostens, and we're trying to bring our brand together. But that is something that certainly is, there's still room for improvement, but it is getting better. Social media management. This is it's actually it's a small piece of what we do, but it's very important because it's a growing medium in which we collaborate with our community and we communicate with our community. You see some of the official social medias of the Milton Area School District. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Gipper. Gipper is a software program that we use athletically. We demoed it about 2 years ago and brought it on for academics and athletics. It's a way to really build a consistent brand or look, a professional look to graphics. And if you've ever seen a professional athlete or someone going on to play in major league sports, and there's like a committed to or the committed to college images, they all look very professionally done. Gipper is a program meant for schools, both scholastic, secondary, collegiate schools, and so we use that now just athletically to be able to celebrate our students and their accomplishments. In fact, I think Raji just used it this afternoon to celebrate some young gymnasts. So that's how we use that program. We do try to make sure that we're using the proper social media for the content that we're releasing. So a lot of athletics go to Twitter and to Instagram. We try to use Facebook, which is our largest social media, as a place for celebrating community successes. And then YouTube is really, how many of you have been to our YouTube channel recently? Thank you, sir. This has grown tremendously. In fact, Dwayne, if you would go to the next slide, we can talk about, since we brought it to life on September 30th of 2019 through now, we have almost 200,000 views. You can see some of the demographics on the left of our other socials, Facebook and Instagram. However, YouTube was something that I can remember was a necessity. There was an urgent need for us to take our YouTube channel to 1,000 subscribers, because at that point, then you can live stream events. What was happening at that time? COVID was happening at that time. None of us could get in front of our kids to watch them play, which, try to tear a parent away from watching their kiddo play a sport. Well, you know what we did? Dwayne jumped on board, Rod jumped on board, everybody in this room jumped on board. We got our subs to 1,000 within a day and a half. It was amazing. There was so much community pride over the fact that we could do that, and then everyone could watch their kids play sports. So we now benefit from having a growing number of subscribers. It is fun to almost watch in live time on the analytics to see how many people are watching our channel at that moment. It's 24 hours a day. So we use it educationally. We used it during COVID when schools were shut down, where teachers could put instructional information and share that easily with their peers and with their students. We use it for athletics. We use it for celebration. And today, debuting just within the last 3 to 4 hours, we now use it to host all of our board meetings. So you will find in the days following a board meeting, all of this content, including what's being said right now, will be on the community page of miltonsd.org, where you'll be able to click and have a stream to that board meeting. Human resources and hiring campaigns. This has been something that I've been really interested to work with Mr. Ettinger on in the last couple of months. We took a look at the former hiring practices, and we tried to really be maybe a little more progressive. I think one of the directors pointed out earlier about how difficult it is to hire, and that's important. So we changed the way that we looked at how we were going to attract. Where in the past we would spend on average maybe between $1,500 and $2,000 in putting some things in the newspaper and hoping over a week's run that we would get candidates to looking at things on a more cost-effective basis. So a good example of that is a recent campaign. We looked at you'll see it at the graphic there, great school jobs, work at milton.com. That's also a URL or a domain that I created for the school district so that we don't have to put miltonpa.k12.pa.us.employment-opportunities. We just tell people, hey, go to work at milton.com. And it links and points directly to the website where we are. You'll notice that this administrative secretary position has some basic information. We spent, I think, all told in creating that and then sponsoring that on social. There's less than $300. That includes my time and Facebook, getting some money. And we generated 59 prospects from that. And I think we have earlier today, 39 applicants for the job. That's amazing. The same thing with a post that you see on the right. We talked about, we were looking for paraprofessionals. We're always in need of good paraprofessionals. We ran a campaign. We created some video content there. We did a first person kind of testimonial. We listened to some of our parents talk about how great it is to work in our district and with our kids. And again, response. People interested in the position, applying for the position. And in this day and age, just getting people to apply and show up at the interview is more than half the battle. The final piece that I included is another one of the hats that I wear that I'm really proud to wear, and that is the hat of a philanthropist and also as a quasi development officer for the school district. We are just, as Dr. Bickhart mentioned before, 3 weeks off of a successful $1 million capital campaign. And I was very proud to play an instrumental role in that. In this room, I think my closest partners were Mr. Hosterman and Mr. Harris, as we worked, it seemed like day in and day out, working on making sure that we could reach our goal. And if not for those two men, it doesn't happen. So it was a team effort to make sure that we could reach our goal. I can say with confidence and not trying not to be boastful, but if we look at the involvement that I've had over the years, I can certainly say that there's over $150,000 of donations that came in because I was able to say, hey, can you give to the capital campaign? Can you donate? Can you, recently, can you cut a check to help us pay for some of these costs? And I was very proud to be able to give in-kind services and donations toward the endeavor. We continue to cultivate those. We have some major gifts that we're working on right now that will be generationally celebrated. So I'm really looking forward to those coming into fruition. A little early to talk about them because we're still kind of hammering out the details, but there's a lot of good work that's happening right now, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. Not only just because my parent or my kiddos here, I'm a proud parent here, but because I know it's creating real solid foundation for our kids in the future. So I'd be happy to take any questions that you have. Again, just thank you for the opportunity to come here and share information with you all. I do appreciate your time.
Can you talk a little bit about your pay structure and how you,
How do I get paid?
how you get paid? I know how I pay you, but I would like to know.
It's really easy. All you have to do is send an invoice to Heidi, and then she sends it to Derek, and then you get a check in the mail. No, my pay structure. So I help consult with a doctoral program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which is my alma mater, and some of my professors have asked me to come back and continue to consult their doctoral students, and so I get a chance to be involved with some of them and teaching them when they have that PhD level crisis communications course, and we talk about what they get paid for their services, and so I'm happy to stay current with what those rates are like. Right now, you can expect anybody that helps with crisis communications, public relations to make anywhere from $100 to $150 an hour for what they do. I generally charge around $100 an hour to clients for that service when they have that need. I felt years ago when I came on, I explained to Dr. Keegan at the time that I was not comfortable charging as a taxpayer, but also as a parent in the district. And so I discounted that. I have discounted everything that I've done for the district since I started 6 years ago. So I give a 25% discount right off the bat. And then there are many times, as you can see throughout the years, that there have been gifts of just zero time, $0, where I've given a service or my time for just as a donation.
Yeah, and I think
Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
It does. Thank you.
Sure.
I think what I want to comment there to the board is that, when I started, I was made aware that there was a contract prior and that, it was going to come up for approval of Norm's work with Norm Jones Media. So it was very new to me in that perspective. So, over the course of the year, I've relied on Norm a lot for many conversations because he said it perfectly. There are many educational things that happen that we all live in that world, but there's a whole nother side of this. And I think it's important for this board to hear that this decision, while we can't take it lightly because there's always cost involved. I firmly believe that from you look at the percentage of our budget and what we're looking and what we're paying Mr. Jones for what we're getting and for the time he is spending, I think is wonderful. I'm going to be honest. Two things superintendents talk about right now: safety and how people perceive them, what the community perceives their school district. How does that look? How is it different? I know this board has been, the discussion's been there. Is there a spot for a development position? Is there a spot for a public relations position? I'm not ready to go that direction right now. I don't think it needs to be a full-time position. I think what we're doing and how we're handling it and the percentage of again, I recognize there's a cost to this. With anything, there's a cost. But I think what we're getting, I'm very pleased with, and I assure you, I'll be definitely recommending the contract coming into next year. Because I've looked at the numbers, just like we did with the Wellness Center, looking at those percentages of what we are paying. And I think one of the things that Norm brought up there that I'm very excited about is our continued work within our own staff, our Panther Media team, into our students. And I think I'm seeing it. what we're able, because some of the relationships Mr. Jones has and some of the money we're bringing in and some of the new opportunities, I feel very comfortable over the next few years. A lot of the costs are going to be covered even that way beyond just, what we get in donations. So again, don't want to underestimate or not recognize that in any time we're talking about budget and numbers, every dollar matters. I do believe this is a very good, when you look at what we're paying to what we're getting in the percentage of our budget, I'm very confident in that. I just feel it's important to say that, but I can't say enough. Superintendents right now across this region are talking about what are we doing for safety? And I know Catherine wasn't feeling good tonight, but I look at that role she serves every day and I think, wow, we have this compared to other districts. And I think what we are able to work with Norm and his passion as a parent and his passion for what he does is evident every time we work together. So it's important. I think when you hear me say that. Other questions from the board for Norm?
I appreciate the kind words, Dr. Bickard. I just one quick question. I do have another job. I am not solely dependent upon the Milton Area School District to feed my family and pay my bills. That being said, I believe in professionals getting paid what they're valued and worth. To that point, I do this professionally. I own 2 marketing companies, a strategic public relations firm, and a digital marketing and website firm. And we manage millions of dollars worth of marketing assets for companies that sell $500,000 worth of products and services every year to over $100 million worth of goods and services every year. So I have a unique perspective with Milton in that you want to run it like a business sometimes. Mr. Fink needs to run it like a business, but I also serve 20 years on the GSB YMCA board, serve on the Pinpoint board of directors at the credit union, part of the First Community Foundation Partnership Board, and some other nonprofits in the area. So I feel like that helps me to understand how we treat our school in times like a nonprofit, and then in other times when it's best suited, we treat it like the $40+ million business that it is.
This might be more of a question for Mr. Fink, but what did we have budgeted last year for these? Current year, and what's our actual expenditures?
14,000 was the budgeted amount, and to date for the 22-23 school year is 14,700.
I do want to add that I think last year we were budgeted 14.7 and we spent 24.2. And I'm the one that brought it up at the last meeting to see what the breakdown was. And it wasn't so much questioning your abilities and what you've done for the district and how the things turn out and play out. It was more of, and I'll put it in your words, when Millville said, teach us how to do it, or create the real solid foundation to their future. It's more of a question of how can we bring it back here to our students to do some of this work, and
I agree with that.
let them handle the social media and let them handle doing some of the videos. We have a new program that we're going to look at for CTE, and it would be a wonderful spot for this to show up, entrepreneurism. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to know how to handle that type of stuff. So the question wasn't about what all you do for the community and how active you are in the district. It is what can we save cost-wise and bring this back to the students and let them handle some of this. So, what can you do to teach our students to be able to move forward and do this so that we can eliminate some of the debt that we had last year and the $2 million that we're looking at this year. And I know the numbers don't compare, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. You said, what is this amount in media? What are we spending on that? And what are we getting out of that amount of medias? I was at that board meeting last time we met. So I understand you have to be fiscally responsible to taxpayers, to the people who elected you to your position. So I totally understand that. So let's address, how can we teach students? I remember creating with Dr. Keegan a program to say, hey, you know what, let's get kids in front of social media, because we've got a case of adults behaving badly, which we still have. It's social media, right? So we went and we rounded up some of our brightest students, and here's what happened. Adults behaved badly. And then the student said, Mr. Jones, how do I respond to this? How can I adequately cover what they're asking? So to your point, we did involve students. And that fell apart after COVID. So I'm happy to bring that back. In fact, I've tried to re-engage some of the students to take an active role. Mr. Harris and I engaged some of our students as teaching assistants to be able to work on Gipper and work with some of those postings. Some of the problem is our kids have, and maybe if schedules change, I don't know that they'll have some of that flexibility. I would hope that they do. But students are asking adults, professionals, how do I answer this? How do I answer this one person who's asked that question? Sure, if it's let's say one of the most popular posts right now on our social is Carly going to Penn State. I was happy to break the news to her the other day that she is in the last 90 days the most popular post on our social channels. That's an easy one. People saying, "Hey, way to go, Carly." And then the student says, "Thank you so much for celebrating Carly." That's great. There was always an adult or a professional there that needed to take time to help steward a student through that process. So I think there's always going to need to be a professional there to help them with that, to your point. And, financially, absolutely. It's why I discount my services. It's also why I think I have in triplicate raised more money for the school district than I've been paid. But your point is well taken. And I think as directors, you have to consider that when you're looking at budget shortfalls. So I appreciate your question.
And just to let you know, one of those young gymnasts that you posted about today was mine, and she's probably 100,000 of your views on YouTube.
I didn't quite hear you. I'm sorry.
She's probably 100,000 of your views on YouTube. She loves the station.
Well, that's great. Tell her we said thank you.
All the time.
That's awesome. Well, it's important that, there's video content that we put on our YouTube channel that is specifically meant for children. And then there's content that we decide that's it's adult facing. And so I'm glad that we have a safe environment for our kids to be able to view content that is meant for our kids, because that's why we're here. Any other comments? Anything you ever wanted to ask?
I do want to ask about the breakdown of your bill.
Sure.
So the social media management for $75, am I reading that correctly? Is that a Facebook post and the cost is $75?
So if you want to look at $75, you can talk about what it takes to make that Facebook post. So $75 is what I charge for an hour of my time. If I am creating, if I'm going to somewhere to get a picture, if a picture has been given to me and I need to put it into a graphic, if the graphic needs to be resized for Facebook or Instagram because they have different size qualifications, not everything that you take and put on Facebook can be put on Instagram. It has to be shaped differently. If it's meant for another social media, it depends on the time. There are many times, Mrs. Strasser, that I don't charge for any of my social media posts. So yeah, it's hard to say. Do you have a specific one in mind that you're looking at that you can?
No, I was just looking at the breakdown of your bill and I was just trying to figure out what costs were what. And some of it explains it right there with a lot of detail and others are not. So I was just trying to figure it out.
It's really a case-by-case basis. There may be 4 or 5, so we'll schedule. Social media is on the business side of things, allow you to schedule content out. And so we'll take time when we get a flood of content. Ever since we created the Panther Media team, we have 300 plus employees in the district, many of which are now forwarding content to the media@miltonsd.org, which is also a community-facing email address. So we'll get content, and we might get Mary from Bacher here just sent a ton of content over. So I'm able to take that, put that together, schedule that out, and I may sit down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, and be scheduling things out so that we have fresh content appearing throughout a 1 or a 2 week period.
And in your expertise, would you say that's something that the students would be able to do? The majority of that, because it shouldn't be.
No, I wouldn't say the majority. No. So
when they post about the positive Panthers or the PBIS rewards, or even my daughter with her gymnastics stuff, shouldn't that be something that the students would be able to do? Because there shouldn't need to be a lot of clarification on what to or how to handle it.
So I would say this, that across the nation, you could take a look right now and look what social media managers are getting paid and what their expectations are. So are you asking the student to only just make a post and then not respond to any of the content? Are you only asking that student to respond to it from 7:30 in the morning until 3:05 in the afternoon? Are you, because when the fan is flame, or when the flame is fanned at 9 o'clock at night on the Milton PA board or the New Crows site or any of the numerous social media sites where things quickly run amok and get out of control, are you asking that student then to jump in there and answer that? That answer is no, because they don't have the expertise in crisis communications and public relations, the ability to adequately or professionally answer that response. They're children. So yes, they can help create posts. No, I don't think that children should be allowed to run the social media for an entire community school district and manage it if you're looking at it like a $40+ million business. So they have a role, a mentored role, absolutely. And I want to be a part of that. And I've been a part of that. But if you're saying, let's just say social media is 15% of a budget, how do we say 15% of a budget? That might be a rational way of looking at it. So let's take 15% and let's let a student manage that. And let's let them all do that. Hands off. Students, you got it. I think you get into trouble there. I think there's liability there. There's risk there of damaging all of the brand, all of the goodwill, all of the other things that we've done now are at risk. So I think, to your point, there's an opportunity to grow and nurture a mentored relationship, and I would be happy to be a part of that. But I'm also at the point where there are so many of us around this table that have worked so hard over a 6-year period to build something to a place where it is, that we know in the world of social media how quickly image can change and how we can be damaged as a brand. And so I kind of feel that way about it as well.
So maybe Dr. Bickhart, you can answer this one better. When we received the pamphlets from the coaches, they have listed in here under technology that they help with the social media team, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and classroom video projects. So are we paying them to do this as well as paying for the media cost?
So I think when we were looking at the big picture of this, probably November, December, talking about forming the Panther media team, we kind of looked at who had opportunity to do that. And I think when you're looking at that pamphlet, the team consists of our three of the coaches being part of that. Dr. Kirkpatrick is part of that. So there are times when they take the lead, so Norm doesn't have to come in. There's conversation between that team. So it would be within their normal workday. But we try and balance that too, because they've got roles in coaching and working with students at times. So there are many times. I think there was a project just the other day. I know Mrs. Bond was working. I'm trying to think what it was, but you weren't available, and that's why we put the team together. So
it is a full-time job. For the businesses, the 60+ businesses that we run professional social management, we work 20 hours a day. That's no exaggeration. We answer from 4 and 5 a.m. in the morning through midnight.
I manage 3 business Facebook posts or social media. It's very different to put a post on a professional page than it is just a feel-good post that you do personally. The way that you have to work with Facebook and Meta and the ads, and the way that you have to assure to post them out there, there's a lot behind it. They've made it much more complicated. So it's not like running your own personal Facebook when you're running a business social media. I mean, I find it's very, very simple to do my own personal one. My work businesses that I manage, it's very, very different.
I think you make a great point. We're here for children. We should engage children as much as we possibly can. My 8th grade daughter wants to know about what I do, and I teach her, and I talk to her about the different tactics and methods that we use in advertising and marketing and public relations. I know that there are limitations to which she is able to accomplish because she's 13. But I can, to that point, we had some really sharp 17 and 18-year-old kids, students 3-4 years ago when we were doing that. And as sharp as they were, and I think one of them was the number 2 or 3 in the class, and I mean, incredibly brilliant students saying, I need guidance here. I don't know what to do. How do I respond to this? And it wasn't always a adult behaving badly. A lot of time it was, but how do I handle that? Okay, well, let's sit down. We'll walk through it. And it's a teaching moment. Sometimes you have that teaching moment 4, 5, 6 times, but it's okay because that's why you're there. You're there for kids. So both of my parents are teachers. Secretly, I think if I were to be reincarnated, I would come back as a teacher. I love the opportunity to work with the kids. And to your point, I think we should nurture that and grow. So I'll do everything that I can. But to Dr. Bickhart's point, I'm a part-time contracted employee of the Milton Area School District, and I rely on Jana, and I rely on Sue, and I rely on Rebel quite a bit.
I think the other comment I would tell the board to be prepared for is Dr. Patrick's been working on it, but we're going to continue. We've got a full overhaul ahead of us on the website. You have not, I'm sure many of you have been on the website. We want to be respectful. There's cost involved there, but there's some work to be done. There's already been some work done that has made it cleaner. If you go there now, there's not a lot of ads on it. It's direct, but I don't know if you any comment you want to make, Dr. Patrick, but it's another piece of this puzzle. So you talk about maybe pulling back a little bit and kids doing things, great, because we may need some expertise in other areas because it's time for something new.
Just to add on the time aspect, and the team has heard me say this many times, I will update any content that you need me to put out there. I don't create the content. I just try to keep the balls, updated so people are coming there, information is available. And we did just remove the enormous graphic investing in our future just recently. So you may have noticed that that's missing, which was, it's a new learning for me as I know a little bit about it and I'm learning more about it every day, but it takes all of us to keep the content fresh.
There's other districts out there that aren't doing this and they're still handling it in-house. So what's the difference?
Yeah, my only comment to that would be there are some districts who have gone the far other side of it all, where they've gone full employee, somebody managing it all. And there have been other districts who internally are just figuring it out. I think a couple things that happened there, and I can only speak my experience when I was leaving Danville. They were paying, I think it was almost close to up to $7,000 just for social media and nothing else, because they were paying about $1,500 per building per person to run just the Facebook page, nothing else, no video content. They were the conduit to information coming to them and they got it out. So it's such a new aspect of this because of the image and the importance of it that wasn't there before. I mean, I would have told you 5 years ago, I want nothing to do with this. Like, we don't need it. We do need it, and if I look at it this way right now, if any little bit we do keeps a kid from leaving us and or brings one kid back, that's $15,000 immediately, either way. So it's definitely a newer topic that we're going to be faced with. We're going to continue to look at our costs, but I think we've got to invest a little here to do it professionally.
May I have one more topic? Mr. Berge and I worked on this with the Milton Cyber Academy, working on cyber education. At one moment, we were staring down the barrel of $1 million+ in students that we were going to pay out. Mr. Statler, Mr. Berge, everyone involved in cyber education got together and said, okay, how do we do this? We got to step out of the box here. So I proposed a series of videos communicating through social and our website. we were able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars to the district by getting people who were going to other cyber academies to come to Milton's because of the benefits. So, and that's a collaborative effort, right? But that's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 that we're paying out to other cyber schools if we don't bring them back in. So if we're looking, you can't just look at it as dollars and cents. You need to, it's important to factor that because you are responsible to people who vote for you, who pay taxes. But maybe it's the adage of you've got to spend money to save money or spend money to make money. And in this case, that can't be more true. So I think there is a realism that in this world, we've got to be able to communicate progressively ahead of the curve and at levels that 14 through 18-year-olds don't comprehend yet because they're not in a place where they think that professionally. Will I help them think? Will I help them with some of those skills? Absolutely. I'll help all day long any kiddo that wants to learn a craft. But I think there's more than just looking at the numbers. Although there are some pretty astounding numbers in favor of doing it.
Mr. Jones,
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming you have liability insurance, correct?
Yes, I do.
Now,
Lots of it.
if there is a mispost, a false response to a comment on our Facebook page, or something gets put out falsely, I'm assuming your liability would cover any financial harm that may cause the district?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Whereas if we have our own staff, our own students do this work, we assume all responsibility and liability.
Well, in the case of, as a guy who once used to hold insurance licenses, the district's policy would pick up first, but then the district could turn around and then sue me. And my insurance policies, which I have, would, and I purchased proudly through the CALP agency on 49 Broadway, would happily respond to that incident. And I'm happy to produce those to the district if they would like to have them on file.
No, so some of the stuff we get into, it could go down, it could go south. And if we don't have somebody responding correctly, because he has to protect himself as well. Because if we get sued, we're going after the boy that created it, the man that created it.
Is there a hybrid model that allows us at least to be more closer to the budget amount that we put in there, so we aren't so worried about going over budget? At least allows us to be closer to what we're allocating, that integrates the students, but also integrates you and holds us accountable financially when it comes to the budget line. I think that's a big question that I have. Is I understand the importance of the social media aspect, being a development guy myself, and how sensitive it can be with certain topics, but there has to be a way that we can integrate the resources we have, develop the future, put it to a more practical aspect for students, but still utilize you in a way that holds us financially accountable.
I would be, and I don't know this number, I'm sorry. I switched billing software about 3 years ago. So my billing software from 3 years ago says that I earned about, and I didn't do it calendar, I did it fiscally. So if I look Jan 1 to December 31, I think I earned about $6,000. The next year it was 15 or 16. The year after that, it was, in the ballpark of the same, 14 to 15. So I suppose that I could, or you could work with the business manager and look back and see, hey, what truly has Norm Jones Media cost the school district year after year? And you could get an accurate depiction of what that looks like.
And Mr. Harris, I think one of the, for many members on this board that's been discussed over the years was, I think it was brought the thought of a development, like an actual position. Any position is ballpark $100,000. That'd be correct there, give or take. So I respect that. One of the thoughts I had in this, and when I said about not wanting a full position, is currently that budget's around 15,000. In my mind, as I've looked at this, and again, I did not set that initial budget going into this year. In my mind, that quarter of that 100,000 for a position, that 25,000 number is my mind. So we're talking about what is a real budget line. Like that's what I, in my mind, look at. However, that means for my role, where are we reducing elsewhere that I think is not under my kind of umbrella of what I think we should be spending. So that's the conversation. I've tried to look at that percentage. It's like a fraction of a percent when we look at compared to the budget. Again, every dollar matters, but I would prioritize this because of what it brings in our image over some other things, and that's what I'm looking at. But I know that's been a heavy conversation in this for years, I think, when it came to that position, so.
I have a quick question. This isn't for you, Mr. Jones, but if we're looking at an overhaul of the website, where does that fit in the budget? If we're currently budgeting 14,000 for media, where are we putting the website at?
So it's in discussion now. I'm gonna have to look at that going. I'm not saying it's going to be part of this next year budget. We may look to see if we can get some small things started. But as we're analyzing, that is going to have to be an absolute discussion of where does that fit? But it's not like a budget line item right now. I don't have in there for 23, 24. It might be, okay, we are gonna less spend here as we go forward. If we can to do something, we're gonna look at that. But we're analyzing right now.
Is there a way to, and forgive me because I'm ignorant on this, but do we have a computer science program with the kids in high school? I just remember in high school, like us as students updated the website. Like I hear what you're saying with social media and things like that, and how we can get backlash from that. But some of our kids are the brightest kids there are and know technology better than somebody that perhaps went to college for it. I'm just thinking of my nephew that's amazing in everything IT. And he has no college degree for it. He's just that phenomenal. And he was that phenomenal when he was 18 years old.
Sure.
So is there any way to at least get the kids involved in the website design and things like that to try to do cost savings and, use our assets that we already have?
I don't want to
allow
speak
them?
for the an expert. I think what we would look at is the same kind of idea, right? Framework, building it is the professional side. After we get there and we have a good foundation, then it's bringing students in. But I think it falls in that same category from a liability or from a professionalized standpoint. It's, I have not talked to any other districts who are saying, yes, the students build. It's a somebody within the district professionally. There are places that have just a webmaster.
Well, it used to be, well, at least it was our teacher that kind of designed it and the students collaborated
Yeah.
to make the website. I think less is more. I don't think we need a super complicated website. I want something easy, user-friendly. Parents can find what they're looking for when they go on it. It's easy for our educators to access. I don't think we need to make it complicated. And I'd love to see our kids collaborate on that and have a say in it. Because
I don't think, I go back to, I don't think there's any reason we can't have kids collaborate on everything. I just also want that solid, professional, organized look to it as well. But we're in the infancy stages of like analyzing the website right now. You can
Yeah,
tell
to
me
that
it's a
point,
heavy lift.
we went through and we pulled, so we put a survey out to all of the staff. Dr. Kirkpatrick and I reached out and we got a handful, maybe about a dozen people of staff that were willing to be a part of the process. And there was really good feedback. It was, I really like this. I really don't like that. There's some disorganization with our website. It's built on a really, really archaic web builder from WordPress. WordPress is what 80% of all the websites in the world are made on right now. So the builder that we're on currently has like 30 outdated plugins. It's just waiting. I'm waiting to log in there one day and have it go. It needs work. So what I think we could do is build on WordPress a updated web builder version of WordPress and get the construct down, the foundation down, and then have students become a part of populating data, right? Content. Web building changes, not kidding, every month. One of the companies that I belong to will build 60 to 80 websites this year. It changes every month, sometimes every other week. It's something where you've got to stay ahead of the curve. And while we do have, I immediately think of some Langdon children that could just go right and build me a website, right? And I know that they could. But some of that web technology is outdated very quickly. So I would love to partner with students to help that, but I don't know what that process means in building. I'm trying to help organize information so that whoever builds the website can have this is the content that's important to us here at Milton. We all really like Williamsport's website. I would encourage you as directors to go to their website and check it out. Very beautiful website. They have a full-time videographer, a full-time PR and development officer, and They have a lot of resources that they throw at that. They hired a very nice website company that builds, gorgeous websites, very expensive website. So there's a happy medium for us that's organized, where we can quickly find that calendar, where we can quickly tell our children whether or not they're getting the Asian chicken salad that day, which everyone is really the Santa Fe salad as well. That's the top two, I think, right now at the cafeteria, right, Ashley? Definitely not the hot dog. I got bad reports on that today. So 86, the hot dogs. Yeah, they love the salad. So to that point, students can be a part of that process. But I think it would be content generation. It wouldn't be, okay, here you go. Take these pages and build those.
Do you think they could sustain it after it's built though too? So that like for right now, our website's outdated. When I looked at renovation information, to do research on things, it was 4 years old. Bakker's still in an 18-19 year of when our renovation's going to start and what they're projecting. So you can see where we originally started to where we are now and how behind we are, unfortunately. But we're getting there. It's amazing. If you didn't get a chance to check out where we're at right now, go downstairs and take a look. Those are some beautiful happenings downstairs. So we're on schedule and it's exciting. We have all this new information, but none of it's available out there because it's old stuff. Are the kids going to be able to sustain under the new model website that would be created? Would the kids be able to update the information or one of our staff, or would it have to still be managed by a separate company?
So I think the best way to go about that is to do what we currently do. And that is that some people have access to certain parts of the website, and then other people have full access to parts of the website. So I think that's the safest way to do it, because there are ways that you can break and take a whole website down. And we don't want folks without expert knowledge in there doing, even those with expert knowledge can make mistakes sometimes. So that there would be components where there would be pieces of like, hey, this is where the student section is, and they can go there and they can update. For the same reason that there is a CTE teacher in mind who is so wonderful about updating that portion of the website. She is wonderful about getting me content. It is not always in the brand of what we have been building. And so we take it, and it doesn't matter how many times I say, hey, could you do it this way? She's got 3,000 things on her plate. And the last thing she's worried about is how our brand looks and what color the orange is and what the M looks like. So she'll say, here you go. And then we'll take it and we'll turn it around and we'll rebrand it and we'll put it out. She's still making our lives a lot easier, but we're trying to keep things consistent. The website should have one voice. Social media should have one voice. And that's how we build followers. That's how we build support in our community. And so if we allow not unsupervised, but unmentored access to websites, then we get many different voices and it becomes confusing. It's like trying to think when you have 3 kids running around in your kitchen yelling.
If it's one designated course though, with one designated teacher, you would think they wouldn't be running amok. It's part of their grade. It's part of their learning structure. And that teacher is mentoring them into it. So you would think they would be able to recreate the brand that everybody has created to then be able to follow suit with what you're asking them to do.
Are you talking about web design or social media?
I'm talking all of it at this point. If we add it into a CTE program, these students should be able to be taught and be held accountable to be able to do something like this. And yes, everybody makes mistakes. I was blocked from Facebook.
Yeah, I still have no idea how that
happens.
I'm just going to say what Steph said earlier about having the entrepreneurship class trying to get involved. You've been doing posts and stuff for 6 years. And I have a small business as well, and I make templates for things, makes it a lot easier, very efficient. We post a lot of the same stuff every once in a while, like awards or videos on certain things. Like, couldn't we take those templates, give them to the students, have, the teacher look over, just make sure, there's nothing legal or anything going on with it before it's posted. And, it's then they're learning. And then at some point, we kind of just pull back a little bit and say, okay, now since you know the templates, you kind of understand what's going on. Why don't you try to make one, see what it looks like?
Okay.
Thank you again for your time tonight and your good questions.
All right, if you could look at the regular May board meeting for under executive report. Questions? The proposed agenda items, 6A through 6D. If not, that is everything for executive committee this evening. Move on to finance committee, Mr. Frederick and Mr. Moser.
All right, first thing we have is a budget discussion. And I believe Mr. Fink has provided us with a one-page handout. If you want to take a look at that, that has the proposed numbers based on last meeting's discussion on the increase levels that the majority of the board felt comfortable with.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things to make note on. So that single page handout that Mr. Frederick was referring to, I also updated it with the homestead, farmstead tax reductions. We just got those numbers 20 minutes before midnight last night. So I ran them real quick, updated it because we will have that homestead, farmstead resolution. Excited to say that it's the most we've ever received. It's almost $200 off of each tax bill for homestead and farmstead property owners. So I just wanted to compare that to show, break that down per month. That's $16.60 off the tax bill. The proposed change that we talked about last week would be $2.32 per month for Northumberland County tax owner or homeowners, median homeowners, and actually decrease of $7 per month for Union County homeowners. So it's just neat to see that comparison there, that we're getting more and more money from the state gambling revenue. That's going to go towards a reduction for the tax bills for the majority of our property owners, which it's almost 4,000 homeowners and farm owners that gets that reduction. And then the other point I wanted to touch on with the budget, did give everybody a brand new PDE 2028 form, which is the form we submitted on, but all of the budget numbers are the same as presented when presented last. And I did, it's updated with the mid revenue growth. That actually, after the tax rebalancing and the homestead farmstead numbers in there, it's actually less than half of the Act 1 index. In Northumberland County is actually at a 2% index. Half would have been 2.6%. So the potential tax increase that we felt comfortable with, it's actually a little bit lower than what we were looking at after rebalancing. And then the last thing that I just want to mention that is out of the ordinary for the agenda items is I requested that we, as a board, look at and pass a resolution regarding the approval of the multi-county school board resolution regarding the mandatory millage rebalancing requirements. So I will try to break that down as quickly as possible. But what that is section 672.1 of the school code requires multi-county school districts annually to rebalance. So we've talked about that a lot, how we have to rebalance it, and we can never get a consistent number for Union County and for Northumberland. The short version of what this resolution is urging the state to do is to allow us to apply our increase and decrease after rebalancing. So what that would mean is we rebalance, and then if we want to increase taxes by 2%, then it's just 2% for Northumberland and 2% for Union. It's an even balance. If we want to decrease taxes by 1%, 1% for Union, 1% for Northumberland. No more of the huge fluctuations year to year, where like this year, where we have one county that's seeing a reduction, another county that's seeing an increase, and we've had the opposite happen for the same counties the last couple of years. It's what I call a common sense approach to multi-county rebalancing. And there's 88 other school districts in Pennsylvania that this would fall under. So I know there's a lot of discussion with those school districts about just switching to a common sense, equal balance after rebalancing. So that resolution should be attached. I don't think it was in your packet. I'm going to double check with Brenda, but you'll certainly have it to review prior to next meeting. But take a chance, take a look at it, and then follow up with me, and I can talk about it too in a little bit more detail or answer any questions on it. But other than that, I just wanted to make sure that we had budget discussion on here, really for you guys to talk about it. If there's still any outstanding questions, anything you guys want to ask me. But otherwise, it's all set up kind of based on where we sort of came to a consensus from our meetings last month. So that I'm all set if you guys have any questions.
On 7A of the recommended approval, were we supposed to be able to access those three things on Agenda Manager? Because there's no link.
There's no links there. Yeah, they'll certainly be available prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And while we're talking about the agenda, you'll see there's blanks for real estate millage, final budget, things like that. It's because I didn't get those numbers until so late last night that they'll be updated prior to the actual meeting.
Any other questions for Mr. Fink on the budget?
I just ask everyone, please make it. Really, really important. And the budget actually requires a majority of the full board. So when there's absent members, it makes it really tough, just because we have to get 5 minimum to pass it. So thank you.
All right, then we have the other proposed agenda items for next week. The one item that is not there that I would like to recommend to the board, and I'll open up for discussion, is I would like to see us remove the late phase of the taxes as we have the last several years. So still have the early discounts, and then from that point on, it's the normal nominal value until December 31st before any penalties kick in.
Since COVID.
Yeah, I think we started that in 2020. It's the first year we did that.
I think we've done it for 2 consecutive years through COVID.
And again, you always said it was very minimal.
It is minimal.
amount,
It
yeah.
is. We've not seen a big impact from that. It's not typical for our areas, but it's if you guys want to see it on the agenda, we will absolutely add it to the agenda. We'll just pull the same language from last year and we can put it on there as whatever the last 7 letter would be.
I would agree with Mr. Frederick.
Okay.
That's a-
I'll make a note to get that added.
The ones that are, it's the hardest for them to pay, or the ones that can't do it anyway, so. Any other questions on the agenda items? Nothing further under finance.
Okay, Facilities Committee, Mr. Hosterman and Mrs. Kessler.
Thank you. We had a walkthrough of Blocker before we started the meeting. Significant progress downstairs. Anything else to add?
The only thing I'll add is, I sent it to you earlier today, but it's also in your packet. We've begun our site logic meetings. This last one, Mrs. Kessler was able to be there, Mr. Harris and Mrs. Rance. There's some notes in there. I think it's important to bring to light. One of the most pivotal topics on there was the canopy. It started at $1 million, still working through all the details of it, but, we have made it very clear that our budget is $500,000 max. So you'll see that in the notes, but what's
I
that?
think 450 was.
450, okay. So just, looking at that, it is amazing though how it actually always rains right at 2:30. Always does. It literally always rains here at 2:30. Anyway, there's notes here. Is there, any questions, thoughts? I'm going to continue every 2 weeks, even if, it's just the district people, I will get this to you. Jeff will continue to give you updates, but we're moving. You got to see it with your own eyes tonight. So we'll leave it at that.
Any questions? Only one item under the agenda under facilities. Any questions on that? Did you have anything to add?
No, just I'm excited we're moving forward. It was nice to see walls going up and the outline and design of the classrooms. It's a really nice space, so it's nice to see the footprint beginning to take shape. Exciting stuff.
That's it.
Derek, I'm not sure the decommission list, I'm not sure that was on Agenda Manager either. There was a bunch of pages that were blank. I think there might have been a bunch of stuff.
I'll have to check with Brenda. She posted
Yes.
that link. So,
Yeah.
okay. So decommission list also not appearing.
I didn't see that one either. Jen.
Okay.
Athletics not working. Where's it out?
That's everything? Okay. Personnel Committee, Mr. Frederick and Dr. Weaver. All right, under Personnel Committee, we have the proposed agenda items 11A through 11F. Any questions on any of those? Good job, Dr. Beckhart. See 11B1. Made my kid do the same.
It'll work.
It'll work. All right, if there's no questions, nothing further.
All right, Legislative Policy and Policy Committee, Mr. Hosterman and Dr. Strauss.
I think the only thing is the paperwork you have, the operations guideline for the student representative of the board and an application. Do we need to approve it?
So they will be on the second reading next week. The reason those three are there, I want to bring your attention to a few things. By approving that student representative, that is what I discussed with you prior of, please take some time, if we do that second reading next week, that you feel very comfortable with that. I'm excited about it. I think, we just had a conversation of getting our students involved. Great way to do that. So that's policy, policy 4004 and the BOGs 5 and 6. Again, they're in your packet. We will have to, Mr. Rance, Mr. Berg and I talked, we'll have to come up with a very quick turnaround, but we've been talking about that to get kids elected so they'd be ready to go for next school year. We'd have a junior and a senior. Policy 202, eligibility of non-resident students. If I can bring your attention to that. This has been a discussion. It is highlighted at the bottom of that, of the board. Correct. So going back, so the BOG, so going back to 004, the BOGs 5 and 6, we did a first reading of them in April. Our next reading would be to approve them formally. What I want to make sure is before we do that final approval, like we are all comfortable with adding a student representative. So just making sure you really read that language in the policy. We'll if we approve that next week, it means we can move forward with that. So I just wanted to make sure we were very clear on that before, the board did that. So it is a final reading.
Are you open to questions this evening?
Sure.
So I have two. One, part of the rule says about reporting student activities to the board. Would this eliminate the need of the student representatives that do already come and present?
Sure. I don't necessarily think it eliminates the group that might come, but this person would be the lead for that group. That would kind of put them in position to do that.
And then
Fair? Anything you want to comment?
is there an opportunity to make this a rotating role just to give more students the opportunity? I feel like picking one or two very select where, maybe it's a 3-month, 4-month appointment or whatever, a semester.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I was thinking a 2-year term kind of limits who can capitalize on that.
I would just love to see more students have that ability.
Do you think less, so we could do 1-year terms for each, so then even the junior wouldn't repeat for the senior year? They could run again, but, or do you want it
I think we
6 months terms?
quarters. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If we do it like quarters or marking periods, it can capitalize how many can actually see what goes into it, maybe give a little more input on it.
Could I just add something to that?
Certainly.
I think part of the opportunity for the student, though, would be to take part in a full year at least, because you'd be part of a full budget process, you'd be part of a reorganization, you'd get the full experience of being like an elected board member. I think if you do it for a quarter, you'd have vastly different experiences that you would find on the board. So I think that's probably why the policy is set up to have a 2-year term, is so you can develop and learn those skills. And it's why it's like an elected position with students also being the ones to help choose those people. Just something to think about, because it vastly changes like what you're getting out of the program if you're limiting it to like a single marking period.
Thank you, Derek.
I think that makes sense, yeah.
I feel like 2 years is a long time on the board. I'm just saying. Especially especially 4 years. But no, I think we should rotate it a little bit, even if it's, I think 6 months. I get what you're saying, Derek, part of the budget process and everything like that, but, or maybe have 2 students instead of just 1. I just feel like more kids should have the opportunity.
Yeah, so what it says right now is you would do a rising sophomore and a rising junior right now.
My apologies there. Yes, I misread that.
And every student can come to the board meetings.
Oh, I'm sure they would love to.
I think it definitely needs to be a 1-year term. I mean, to get the full.
Weird.
To
Yes.
recognize.
I mean,
Agree.
this is an educational opportunity for the kids and also to promote future leaders, future school board members, future township supervisors. And you have to get the full experience,
The whole
the
cycle.
whole budget cycle, the whole election cycle, everything. It's a huge opportunity for the kids that want to be future leaders.
So do we do just a 1 junior and 1 senior and every year it changes? I don't know, again, I feel like the 2 years, because we're not really training them to do it, you know, they're learning through osmosis, but.
Dr. Bickert,
Yes.
does it need to have 3 readings?
So you
Because
have
if we
one-
read it in April and we read it in May.
I think
only
it,
2. Do we need 3
I
readings?
don't think so.
It's a third one this year. Approval. Readings and then approval.
Last month, this whole list was just a first reading last month.
Okay, so let me go back. Let me look at that, the language. So when it comes to, if we're going to make that adjustment, do we leave it as a junior for the opportunity for 2 years or only a 1-year term? Well, we'll go back, look at the language. We have to go through, the final or approval next week. So I'll make some changes. That's why I wanted to bring it up though, because I do recognize that it's significant because it's going to be a student sitting here with us. All right, so look at that. Policy 202, eligibility of non-resident students. So our policy has always had the ability for prospective residents. What was brought to my attention was, for a multitude of reasons, what if we have a teacher who we hire or teacher who is here that is going to be moving and wants that opportunity to bring their child over? So we looked at a lot of language. We talked to Attorney Beard. What we have in there is what we feel is viable language. We want to be a little protective of the district in that, if somebody says they're coming and then they don't, we need to hold them accountable a little bit. The goal here is to really kind of give them opportunity. So that language is there for you to consider. In 2 different spots highlighted, the bottom of page 1 and then the bottom of page 2.
It's a common practice across the Commonwealth.
No,
I think so. I've never heard of it before.
when I asked Attorney Beard about that, he said he doesn't often see it, but it's not ever kind of thing, but it's not often.
So what prompted this?
Some discussions by people of, it started with, a teacher requesting kind of, is this even a possibility? And I said, yeah, with tuition. And I think since then what stemmed was, is there language out there? Could we consider it? We talked to Carl we talked as a leadership team a little bit. There was positives, there was hesitations. We went to Carl and said, just what you just asked. What do you think? He's like, it's not typical, but it's not out of the norm. I also think there's a lot of things going on across the Commonwealth right now where people are looking at ways to attract teachers, creative ways to do it. I think there's some heavy language in there that states you're not here in a year, you're going to owe back tuition. So that would make me second guess it if I wasn't sure I was doing this a year later. So that's policy 202. Policy 810 is transportation. This has been a discussion. Take a look at that.
So I don't love the 1.5 mile walk to school for some kids. There's stipulations on when that happens and when it doesn't happen.
Where are you at? Which aspect? You in the AR or?
Is that the transportation one that I saw that there could
10?
be a walk to the bus stop that would be 1.5 miles? No more than 1.5 miles. I feel like I read it last night. somewhere.
It's in the AR.
Stops.
Okay.
It's number 3. Under bus stops. This one.
I mean, when I think of some of the roads in our district, that's a long walk for some kids.
Myself.
Yeah.
He's out of order. Out of order here.
Okay, so you're on number 3 there, bus stops. Got it. So as you're looking at that, I think one of the conversations has been about limiting how long a child's on a bus. And some language that kind of recommends that.
Is there, I'm just critiquing a little bit here, but the part about in the district in cooperation with the bus contractor will make every effort. Is there any, I understand what you're saying. We always try to make an effort to limit the amount of time, but I feel like it doesn't set the expectation compared to like the language of ensure the length of time is less than an hour. Because right now we're making an effort to get Montana's bus times under an hour and a half, but it's not happening. Is there any way?
Yeah, and that language didn't necessarily exist. We added that language. It's not normally in that AR. So my only concern in being too strong with the language from the board perspective is locking you in to, it has to be, but that's up to you. I gave you what I thought was appropriate language.
I love the sentiment that we're attempting to go that route. I just feel like we should be committed to it. And that's also making our contractor commit to working with us to establish appropriate routes that are. That's the only thing that stands out to me. I appreciate that it was added. I do. I really do. We're taking a step forward.
We also have to remember, if we're going to commit to that, at some point, we're going to end up probably spending more money to meet that commitment. And we need to be prepared to
I
say
agree.
yes to that.
That's if it comes for a student perspective and it's going to affect their ability to learn because they're on a bus for an hour and a half each way. I am committed to spending more money for that because it's going to affect that child's life every day.
What I would say to that is,
Bus stops.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
They won't be on the bus, they'll be walking if it's a mile and a half.
That's already in
We
there.
get down to like 12 bus stops in the whole district.
Yeah, but a lot of the places have hazard roads too, where there's
you-
still bus.
There's hazardous pathways
Castles
that
Run
students
Road
can't
is a
be walking
hazard.
on, so we have to provide transport. Like, one example that makes it tough is Broadway. When the sidewalk ends in Broadway, it becomes a hazardous route determined by PennDOT. So even though a student could live right there by Bacher or like right over the hill to the secondary complex, we have to provide transportation for them. So like there's a section within the borough that even though they're within that mileage distance, we still have to transport because of that dangerous walkway.
That's always been, I don't think that's anything new.
No, that's not
I
new.
said that jokingly, by the way,
Yeah.
because a mile and a half where I live is a long way.
When it doesn't count your private driveway, till you get out of your driveway, even to go there. But
Yeah, but a mile and a half flat versus a mile and a half. In the wind.
So, Mrs. Kessler, I think what I'd like to try, and the board can change that with the language next week, is I think we keep the language as is and we become evident if we're doing it or not. Like very quickly next year, it's going to be real or not if we're doing it. However, the board chooses to go with stronger language, that's fine. But I think we continue to talk about it. I'll tell you this, those of you that were at the presentation last night, Mr. Toll is already one sheet ready to go for me next week to go over some things that are already what he's doing. Like he was on it immediately. So I think we're very conscious of what we want to do differently.
I
But
just, from my own personal experience this year and regarding all
Sure,
the
I
testing
understand.
issues we've had and dealing with it all, and on a personal level, like getting pushback and pushback and pushback. And I'm a board member, and I don't expect any special treatment for that. I know how hard you worked showing up the first week on the job going, how can we fix this and how can we make it better? I'm just concerned that, we're only dealing with, I'm going into realignment now as I'm talking about this. We're only dealing with, our fifth graders at White Deer right now. We look down the road and we're talking about transportation over the next several months. We're looking at moving the whole student body population of our elementary reconfiguration and looking at routes. So I want to ensure that our commitment is absolutely, we are going to try. Absolutely. And I understand there'll be outliers where maybe it's an hour and 5 minutes or whatever, but our best attempt is going to be, yes, we're going to keep it an hour or less. Because some of our kiddos live pretty far out. As we heard last night, you'll hear some families, they live pretty far out. Our bus times are still not coming in where I would like to see them. I know it's our first year, but I think I'm looking for the commitment that we're going to push back on the contractor and say, no, this is not acceptable. And yes, it may cost us a little more.
Okay.
The important thing is that child's getting to school timely and having the ability to learn well because they're not on a bus for an extended period of time, whether that's in the morning or afternoon. I just know some of our families are not able to take their kids and drop them off. I'm fortunate I can, and we don't have to get up super early for the bus. But I know a lot of families don't have that privilege, and that's who I'm fighting for right now. I just want it out there. I appreciate you added it. And I hear what you're saying. I know we can't always hit that mark 100% of the time. I just think it's a huge consideration we need to look at going forward. Because we're dealing with it this year already.
You gonna comment?
No, I mean,
No, I thought you were-
we obviously always try to limit the time that students are on the bus. Like we want the students dropped off and safe at home as soon as possible, or brought into school as soon as possible. Couple things that I'm looking forward to for the what we're doing to limit that and bring that down is that previous to our current contractor, our former contractor was actually making most of the routes. I don't believe in that. I believe the school should have full control over the routes. We now have full control over the routes. So this upcoming school year is going to be the first year that we, the district, will fully control all of the routing. We are looking at additional resources to come in. So aside from Darren, our transportation coordinator, looking at this, making new routes based on the realignment that we're looking at. We are also bringing in our software company, TransFinder. Route Finder is the overall group. They offer consultation services specifically around realignment, and we have already scheduled time for them to come in September based on Darren finishing his routing. They're going to send their team of specialized analysts to look at that based on realignment to reduce those times further. We've already talked to the contractors, brought them in. They're aware of what we're looking at, what we're planning to do. And we have the added benefit that we're not switching contractor. I hope we're not switching contractors over the summer. So I think we have a lot of positives in place. I'm confident in our ability to reduce it and really help it along. I get really nervous when you put in like must meet 1 hour, and I get where you're coming from. But then like my next question is, well, what if we don't? Like, what then? Then is our buses going to dictate our start time and departure time for schools? Are we going to allow our busing restrictions to then say we have to start earlier, later, things like that? Like I'm more so, I want and I think Dr. Bick, I don't want to speak for you, but you and I have had this conversation. Our district needs come first, and busing has to kind of come in line with that. At the same time, making sure that we are getting kids home as safely and quickly as possible. So I'm still very confident that we're going to be able to make it to the point where just about every single student is going to be off the bus in less than an hour. You mentioned outliers. There's some that's just going to be tough. Someone has to be the last kid. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of fact. And they may be on there a little longer, but our goal will be obviously to work that out. So I'm looking forward to that time in September when we sort of get all the things together. And I know Darren's already started. He talked to John, he talked to me today, and I think he's going to have something ready for next week to share. He's going to give it to us to look at. So we're trying. We really want to get there, because trust me, the better we do, the better we do, the less pushback and negative feedback we get from the community members. And we all know this is a huge, huge topic. So trust me, we all want to get it streamlined for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, for sure.
The other part about that is too, with, I'm reading this, the stops will be established at locations that best ensure the health, safety, and welfare. I know Sunland Meadows has been a hot topic with us this year, and with Sunland Meadows and coming into the development there. We go into Rolling Ridge, is that correct? The busing does go into Rolling Ridge? Okay. So is there looking to be any changes to that next year?
Something we have to look at, because if we're talking about reducing times for stops, I mean, a way to reduce time and get kids on and off faster is have them congregate at a single stop. So it's eliminating going into developments, because I believe policy actually states that we do not go into subdevelopments
Unless it creates a hazard on the main road from blocking private entrances.
Exactly.
Which it does.
And the reason for that is to increase the time, because if all the kids can congregate, boom, right on the bus, or boom, the drop off, it saves a lot of time and brings those route times down. So yeah, all things that we have to look at.
Well, I'm happy to report all the construction is complete and every house is done in Sunland Meadows. I can vouch for that. So I don't think you'll anticipate any problems in the upcoming year.
Gotcha.
And they did change the route when they came in, which I think is making it go more smoothly of where they turn and stuff. But I was just wondering if they went into Rolling Ridge as well. So I know that's something that's super appreciated and is needed based on, we have a lot, I know I keep saying this and the population's decreasing, we keep hearing, but Sunland Meadows has a lot of young children that are not on that bus yet. They're up and coming. I think you're going to see a very big kindergarten class in a few years. So coming into that development is to me essential. That's it. I know we've talked about transportation endlessly this year. And I appreciate everything you're doing to try to get the bus times down. I know trying to figure out the white deer schedule and everything was very last minute this year too. So we have that advantage going into next year.
As a discussion point, because it was mentioned last night, and I realized this would be logistically harder and more expensive, would we consider separating secondary and elementary bus routes?
There's your call for it.
Just a question, throwing that out there. I know there's mixed sentiments on that one.
Tandon has mixed, I mean, at least ours, we have multi-grades on one bus. Is that different for the, that's what I heard, right? It's different for other areas? They have separate buses?
I couldn't answer that for you. I'm sorry. I just don't know the rosters.
I know that popped up, but it was surprising to me because we do have mixed buses. Okay. Okay, thank you. Are we going to know the, and I'm sorry, more questions about transportation, but it's a hot topic. Are we going to know as far as like, you know, with the analysis they're doing and figuring out planning and routes and working with the, you know, them, are we going to have numbers of how much this is going to cost us? Like when we are looking at realignment, are we going to have a number that shows the cost of the actual transportation difference to send the kids and realign like that?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll have actual numbers, right?
Yeah, we would see
That would
that.
be a must.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the agenda items are the board policies. The question is whether or not we do three readings or two readings. I always thought it was three. First, second, and final. So the items listed as final reading should really only be the second reading.
So,
Brenda will know that.
yeah, and that's what I said to Mr. Hosterman, Dr. Strasser, you know, I'll go back to
Yeah.
Brenda and check on that.
So in the event that somebody would propose a change to one of those policies, would it go back to a first reading after a change?
Another good question.
No, that's why there's multiple readings.
Okay.
I
so
don't
when-
think it goes back to the
It'll
first.
probably just be on the same
Changes.
reading again, right? Be
Yeah.
the same reading over again. So I will have that answer for next
Right.
week, I assure you.
Right.
Two readings.
And then your third one is where you approve it. That's what I recall.
Well, you're saying on
Does-
the second one, you're approving it.
No, the third. Well, your next one is you're approving it, but it's on the agenda with that's your third.
And 009 is going to be discussed at.
Can we just clarify that? for-
Yes, we'll clarify and I'll have the answer for next week.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I
Moving on.
always remember.
Move on.
All right. Is that everything for legislative? Okay. Athletics and extracurricular committee, Mr. Hosterman. Huh?
Mr. Moser.
Oh, Mr. Moser, all right.
Where am I at?
Athletics and extracurricular. Proposed agenda items. Page 4 of 8.
So all that there is the agenda items on the next week's meeting, items on 9A through 9C. I think there's more to come on 9C this evening.
More to come on nights. Any other questions? Any questions? Okay. Education and Technology Committee, Mr. Hosterman and Mrs. Kessler.
Thank you, Mrs. Rance. We just have proposed agenda items, one of which is the recommend approval for the list of 172 candidates for graduation for the class of 2023. So exciting.
That's exciting. That everything?
That's everything. Thank you.
Is there anything else? I believe that that is all the business we have. I am going to ask for a motion to go into executive. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify aye.
Aye.
No other further business. See you next week.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
It's an hour and see something on Thursday.